Hello, I am Theodore Kipling Young, known as Ted Young. I'm 39 years old. I was born in 1968, February 16th, and I believe I was born in Emmanuel Hospital, Emmanuel, in Portland, Oregon, and 1 year younger than Spencer, so I guess that makes me your fourth child. And I do remember I remember living, my earliest memory is being in a crib and having lots of people gathered around the crib. I think they were all excited. I can't remember what I'd done. I think I was standing up or something. But I do remember living in a house full of a lot of people. And I remember the crib was in your bedroom at the time.
I had two cribs in my bedroom for a long time.
And I remember moving out of that room into the room across the hall that had bunk beds. And I remember always being scared of sleeping in the upper bunk. I always slept in the lower bunk. I don't know if I ever slept in the upper bunk as a kid. And I remember following Spencer around a lot as a kid and kind of doing what he did. I remember starting grade school, and we started grade school I think at the same time because he didn't go to kindergarten. I went to kindergarten. And I think at kindergarten I think I walked to school all by myself.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I was in the afternoon class. I remember coming home with everybody else, but even at, I must have been 5 years old, walking to grade school all by myself.
Yeah.
Which seems,
Sometimes I walk to the corner, wait for you.
yeah, it seems incredible now, but I didn't worry about it much back then. I remember, as they say, in terms of mom, I remember always trying to be helpful. I guess one of the stories mom tells me was that when I was a baby, I always had to be held or else I'd cry. So when I was a baby, she had to do all of her housework with one hand while she held me with the other hand. So maybe that spoiled me, or I don't know.
Until you could walk and get around.
Until I
And
could
then-
walk,
yeah,
okay.
Then it was just for those few months when you couldn't get out and get around, and probably from the time you were 3 months to 8 months in that time.
I remember playing Little League baseball starting in, I think, first grade. We started Little League during the summers. And you always, and again, we'd go to games all by ourselves. I mean, there was no bus, so you'd get your uniform on and either go to the school, or sometimes there'd be like a station wagon there. They'd pile, 10 kids into the back of the station wagon and drive us off to the baseball game. I don't think I was very good at baseball, but we played it every summer, and I enjoyed being, involved in organized sports. And I remember, Mom always supported us, always encouraged us to be involved in activities. So we got involved, like I said, Little League. When we got to be older, I remember in fourth grade I was manager of the track team, helped keep track of the track equipment. And then fifth grade, played soccer, played basketball, even though I hated basketball. Played, was in track, even though I wasn't great at track. We were always involved in a sport. Joined band, learned to play an instrument. Encouraged to stick with band, even though at one point I wanted to quit. And he always encouraged me to stick with it, and I did, and it was helped a lot of good memories being involved in all those activities. I remember, I think I was in first grade about when I learned to ride a bicycle. I remember we had a bike with training wheels, and Lauren and I were both share that bike with training wheels. I think Spencer had it before, and as soon as and Dad finally took the training wheels off of it, and Lauren and I both, I think we learned by coasting the bike down our driveway out into the street. I remember being a little bit bugged because Lauren was a year younger than me. He learned to ride the bike at the same time as I did. And I also remember that we would go out to eat some places, would see all the kids and say, "Are these all brothers and sisters?" And we'd say yes, and they would think that Lauren and I were twins because we were about the same size even when we were younger. And that always bugged me too, that Lauren looked as old as I did, even at a young age. But back to the riding the bike. As soon as for me, learning to ride a bike was a great freedom, and I remember, as soon as we had a bike, and then a few years later, we got bikes for Christmas, and I remember just really feeling free with that bike, to go wherever I wanted, and I don't know if you wanted me to go all over the place, but I remember that I knew that if I was quiet enough and didn't really make a big deal of things, that I could kind of sneak off and no one really noticed me gone most of the time. And I'd ride to friends' houses and ride down the street, ride to Lincoln Park, and then we got older. I got the 10-speed, and I remember riding the bike to Floyd Light in the morning and riding it back. I remember riding the bike all the way to Blue Lake Park. I had a girlfriend actually that lived halfway to Blue Lake Park, so I'd drive to Blue Lake Park so I could drive by her house. Oh, so that was middle school, but I just remember, like I said, having a bike just gave me a freedom. Just go. I remember riding the Columbia River sometimes, and one day I was riding, and I was going down the street, and I was looking at my reflector in front of the 10-speed, and it was loose. I was really worried about this reflector. I was looking down, and all of a sudden I felt a big bump on my head. I had run into a truck that was parked on the side of the road, and I feel my teeth were all chipped up. Actually, I don't know. I might have been knocked unconscious. So I opened my eyes, and I was looking at the sky. And I started walking down the street, and my teeth were all chipped, and I had blood running down my face. I must have looked pretty gross, because there's a lady in her front yard that says, "You okay?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm all right. I'm not really sure where I was headed." But she said, "I think maybe you need some help." And I said, "Yeah, I think you're right." So she had me come lay down in her front yard, and she gave me a cloth, and she said, "Do you know your phone number?" So I gave her my phone number, and I remember Mom didn't have a car for some reason. Do you remember?
Yeah, I did. I don't remember why, but I didn't have.
For some reason, you didn't have a car, and I'd called, and she must have told you that I was pretty bad shape. So I think you got Georgia Thomas to come and pick me up.
Georgia took me to come pick you up.
Yeah, and you guys both came and picked me up and took me to the hospital, and I got 13 stitches in my head, and man, it seemed like it was a long weekend for some reason, but and Rob was in medical school at the time, so he came in with the doctor that was doing the stitching and stitched up my head, and watched as I got stitched up, a lot of blood.
And a lot of teeth missing.
And yeah, all my front teeth are all chipped up, but and so I got a dental. Yeah, you made a dentist appointment for me. Went in and got those all ground down and capped, and yeah. So.
Your dad did work to pay back the dentist.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was very expensive. Even then, it was very expensive.
Mm. So, but you still let me ride my bike anywhere I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I would ride all over the place. Actually, I remember another Stitches story, and I vaguely remember this, but we had rose bushes in our front yard, still do, and I was going out to get the mail, and the mailbox is right in the middle of these rose bushes, and I was going to get the mail, and I fell into the rose bushes, and somehow I got a really deep cut right between my legs, and I had to go in for stitches for that too.
Well, when I went to the doctor's office, which is worse, Spencer was walking, I was carrying Ted, and Lauren was the toddler, and I was pregnant with Karina. And everybody in the waiting room was looking to see who the heck this lady was with all these little kids. And he had to have stitches.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, vaguely remember that. I remember it was a sunny day. I remember falling in the rose bushes. I remember kind of looking up at the doctor's face.
Yeah, so
as
you
I
were
got
just
stitches.
pretty young.
Yeah.
You were very young. You
Yeah.
went to get the mail, yeah.
And I also remember that financially we were pretty independent too. I remember in middle school, I don't know if you made us buy our own clothes, but I knew that I wanted to buy the clothes that I wanted to buy. So I started, working. Actually, earlier, I started working hauling wood for the Crolls, and then mowing their lawn, and mowing our lawn, and then mowing, the Cronins had a neighbor, I started mowing their lawn, and started mowing lawns and doing odd jobs, you know, to earn money, so that I could buy the clothes. I don't know why I was so fashion conscious in middle school, but, you know, I was. So, started working even, like I said, between 6th and 7th grade, started earning money to buy my clothes. And I remember Mom was working at Land of Rental then, and they needed help on Saturdays. And so Mom would give me a ride on Saturday morning, give me a ride down to the rental so I could help them out. And we were driving, it was really early in the morning to get there early because, you know, all the people come rent the equipment early. And it was really early in the morning, and we were stopped at a red light, and Mom stops and then just starts driving again. And the light was still red, and there was a policeman right there, and he pulled us over.
Right behind me, and when
Yeah,
I
he's
saw
right
the
behind me,
policeman
yeah.
in the rearview mirror, I don't know what ever went through my mind. I just started up the car and drove right through that red light. The policeman right behind me.
And he was a motorcycle policeman, wasn't he?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. The lights came on, we pulled over, and he came up, and I can't remember what he asked us, but I do remember he didn't give us a ticket.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I never saw Mom. I saw Mom get pulled over several times, but never saw her get a ticket.
They liked me.
I guess so. So anyway, I remember her driving me down and picking me up so that I could have work at the rental and earn money. And like I said, I remember I'm getting, you know, like I said, early age, you know, having jobs to support myself. Whether it was, like I said, mowing lawns, doing yard work, and then as soon as I could drive, I started doing roofs with Greg Brown, and that really helped. You know, and I guess I remember being kind of financially independent at a young age. I remember being at Oxbow Park too. Mom was in the brown van, and I think the speed limit there was like 10 or 15 miles an hour, and Mom was going like 35 miles an hour, and she got pulled over by a policeman, and she just smiled and laughed, and he just told us to slow down and no ticket. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it, but I'm sure it's true.
See, I remember a lot of stories. So at a younger age, I remember there were Spencer, me, and Lauren, and we were all, you know, we all liked to wrestle. And I remember Mom being on the phone. I don't know if Spencer's already told this story. Being on the phone with the Relief Society president, we'd wrestle in the front room, and she had a corded phone, you know, so she could only reach out so far. And we knew to stay out of her reach, and she would snap at us, you know, try and get us to be quiet. And we would just keep on wrestling, and we knew she was on the phone long enough that there's no way she was hanging up in time for to get after us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, so we'd roughhouse in the front room, and Mom would always have these nice dishes hanging on the wall and nice knickknacks and everything. And, you know, and we'd be roughhousing and break one of them, and she'd get so mad at us. And, you know, and no more roughhousing in the house, no more roughhousing in the front room. And, you know, and you know, 2 weeks later we'd be at it again and break something else. And how am I supposed to have nice things if you guys ruin them all? No more roughhousing. And then, you know, she put more nice stuff up, and we'd be wrestling and break it again. And I don't know how much of your stuff we broke over the years.
I'm not either.
But I always thought you were crazy to keep on putting nice stuff in the front room.
The front room is supposed to be the front room.
So we always, we broke a lot of stuff. What else do I remember? And I remember, you know, we did a lot of and the other thing I remember, if we were roughhousing, and Mom, or we were doing something wrong, and Mom was in the kitchen, if she opened up there was a top drawer in the kitchen full of all the spatulas, and there's knives and serving spoons and things, and if you heard that drawer open up, that means she was coming out with a wooden spoon to spank you. And we would all scatter. All we had to do was hear that drawer open, and we'd scatter before she even came in the room. I don't think, and by the time she got there, we were all sitting peacefully in the corner, and you know.
And don't you think I knew what was going on?
Oh, I don't remember getting spanked that many times.
No, you didn't.
I remember one time I think we were at church and we were all being bad at church, and she brought us home, and she says, when you guys get home, you're all getting spankings. And we got home, got out of the van. She lined us all up in the front yard, and she went and got the wooden spoon and went down the line and spanked every single one of us. I think that's the only spanking I really remember. I remember being left when everybody was going to church. I can't remember what I was doing, but I went out finally to get in the car to go to church, and the car was gone. I thought, well, I guess I'm not going to church today. I went back in the house. I don't know if they noticed. I don't know how soon you noticed, but I remember once they called me from church and says, Ted, are you there? Are you all right? Yeah, I'm all right. Well, we're already at church now, so I guess next week better get out the car in time. And I stayed home that day.
You had a habit, and thank heavens the other kids didn't pick up on it. You'd get everybody in the car, finally, and you'd have to get out and go to the bathroom.
Oh.
I mean, you just automatically get up, and it was just a ritual with you. And I think that's how you got left. I think.
That could be.
Yeah, someone was probably late coming out of the house, and you'd already made your entrance and exit and gone back in the house. It was just, and you were the only one that really did that, but you did it. It was just like part of the routine.
Maybe subconsciously I was trying
Yeah.
to get out. But I never really, hated church. I never really tried to stay home from church
No.
or anything.
You weren't rebellious in that way at all.
No. I remember being left at Shakey's Pizza,
Oh, that
Once.
was your birthday.
and I didn't remember it being my birthday, but I remember
Yeah,
being
it was
there.
your birthday.
And I can't remember what I was doing, but all of a sudden
In
everybody
the
was gone.
bathroom.
Oh, I was in the bathroom?
Yeah, you
That
went to
could
the
be.
bathroom and we loaded up and got the car and were on our way out when you came running out of the building.
And everybody was gone, yeah. Where's everybody?
Oh dear.
Oh. So I was, yeah.
Talk about responsible parenthood. Oh dear.
Well, I always remember, and that's the other thing, I always remember when Spencer had a disagreement with Mom and Dad, he'd always confront them and they'd argue. Whenever I had a disagreement, I'd just be really quiet and just kind of quietly go about doing whatever I wanted to, and you'd never notice.
Yep.
So I never was openly rebellious or openly
That's how you dealt
argumentative.
with it, yeah?
Yeah, I just, okay. And then just, like I said, just go off and like I said, I remember, taking off my bicycle all the time and just being gone for hours and
Do you remember once not getting your dinner because you didn't get home on time?
maybe.
Yeah, you were supposed to be back at a certain time and you didn't show, and I'd always save food for you, and this one night I just said, no, you weren't home, you don't get to eat.
I remember
And you weren't late again.
really.
Yeah.
I remember once, this is another real big memory, I know you've forgotten about this, but once Mom wanted to take all the kids downtown and show them downtown Portland, spend a trip downtown. And she was going to take us all on the bus, so going to rate us all on the bus, go downtown and get sandwiches or whatever, and for some reason I had this real phobia of riding the bus and going downtown. I thought that the buses in downtown was full of criminals and and it was dangerous, and I just didn't want to go. And so Mom hired a babysitter. She had Steve Thomas come over and babysit me while she took the other 5 kids and all rode on the bus and went downtown and went on a vacation, or kind of a, not a vacation, but on a kind of a trip, and all came back.
A field trip kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
field trip, yeah. And I don't remember if you remember doing that. I don't remember. And like I said, I just had a real phobia, and which is interesting because I ended up, growing up and going to Portland State and being downtown all the time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, as a kid, maybe I'd seen some movie of, some, ghetto or some real scary downtown, and I thought that's what downtown Portland was like, and that just scared me, and so I just didn't want to go. And you let me stay home, which looking back, I can't believe that. My kids, I'd probably pull them out by the ears and not give them the choice.
The thing I can remember about you is that you were very slow in talking.
Oh yeah.
Very, very slow in talking. He didn't talk. Spencer could understand him. He'd talk to Spencer. Spencer could understand him, but he never would talk. He just didn't talk till he was probably between 3 and 4 years old. I mean, it was really late. And one night I was standing in the hall, and you slept in the spare bed. You didn't sleep. Spencer slept above, and Lauren slept below, and you slept in the other
Okay.
bed. So you didn't sleep in the bunks down in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And I was staying in the hall, and I was trying to listen to hear who was awake, because I could hear these voices. And I'm standing there in the hall, and I hear jabber, 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 jabber. I can't understand you. Jabber, 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 jabber. I can't understand you. Just as plain as I'm saying it now. And I stood in the hall, and I listened, and I thought, who was talking? And I went in the bedroom, it was Ted, talking to himself. He could talk perfectly well. Perfectly well.
Well, I say I don't remember that.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh. Let's see. I'm trying to remember if I remember that Mom always had a dream of taking us to Disneyland. And so when Spencer was in freshman year of college at BYU, and his group was going, and Rob was living in San Diego, and Spencer's group was taking a tour through Southern California, so he drove all the way down, and stayed with Rob in San Diego, and went to Disneyland for a day. Yeah. And Mom wanted us to go. There were some certain rides that she thought we had to go on, so we went on. It's a small world after all, and we made sure we
That's
went.
the one I liked.
I know. So he goes, you guys got to see this. You got to see it. And I was 17 years old and a senior in high school, and thought, wow, Mom, there's nothing really excited about this ride.
I liked it.
I probably would have too if I was 10 years old. 17 years old, it wasn't the right age for that ride. And I remember that same trip, Rob thought that Knott's Berry Farm was a real cool place to go. So we went to Knott's Berry Farm, and I think I went and started they had these people performing. I went and started watching these people performing, and then I hadn't seen anybody in the family for a long time. I thought, boy, I wonder where everybody is. And I wandered around the park and couldn't find anybody, and it's been dark for a long, long time. I thought, well, maybe they all went back to the car. So I went out to the parking lot and went out, and sure enough, everybody's in the car. And Ted, where were you? What are you doing? We were like,
Rob looked all over. He was just, he was hysterical almost. I thought, how do you figure when a kid just disappears like that?
yeah, and again, it wasn't being rebellious. It wasn't trying to sneak off. It just,
Kid.
I just ended up, and all of a sudden, boy, no one's around. But again, I think I was 17 years old at that point, but still.
Yeah, but we were there as a group, and
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah. And let's see, I remember going through the temple, Provo Temple, on my 2 days before I went into the MTC, or it was the day before. It was like we would put it off until I went down to Utah to go to the MTC. Went to the Provo Temple, and you guys took me through, and dropped me off at the MTC. And I was real excited to go. Remember Dad being on a 50 miler and Dad getting lost.
That was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it's funny. The whole time I was never really worried or scared or anything. I guess I just thought, oh, he'll turn up. I mean, never really thought that that something tragic had happened to him. It was always real. I mean, I just remember kind of just hanging out and said, oh, he'll show up sooner or later. Never really worried about it. I remember going on a date with Marilyn before we were married, and we took Mom with us, I think, to a play. You remember going to see a play? I think it was called Company.
Oh, was it at Portland State?
At Portland State, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I
Somehow
remember that.
you had 3 tickets, I think. You had some tickets
That
to
might
this
have
play.
been the case.
And he says, well, why don't you come with me and get someone to come with you? And we brought Marilyn. and so we all went and saw that play together, and I think you said something to Marilyn. You said, "Oh, Ted really needs to get married."
We
Really?
probably did.
So Ted really needs to get married, and sure enough, I ended up marrying Marilyn. I don't think I got engaged real shortly after that, though. But oh, another thing I remember is sometimes we'd come home from school. And I remember whenever we get home from school, we always say, "Hi, Mom." We always wanted Mom to be there and let her know that we were home. And that was always really important. And the other thing that was really important for you is to tuck us into bed at night. I think I probably was 12 years old before I started going to bed on my own. I wanted to be tucked in every night, even when we were I had my own bedroom and everything. But I remember coming home from school sometimes, and Mom would have a nice dish all baked and everything. And I always knew that if she had baked a nice dish that early in the day, that it meant that she was baking it for someone else. So I was like, so who's this going to? Because Mom was always making dishes for someone that was sick, or someone that had a baby, or whatever. And I just got used to Mom always, and we'd always get dish, be at church and they'd say, "Oh, here's your dish back." And it just seemed normal to me to be always doing stuff for other people. And and I had another thought when I was mowing lawns. Mom always wanted us to succeed and do a good job and be well thought of. And once I mowed Tilly's lawn, and instead of pushing I would get tired of pushing the lawnmower forward, so I'd go forward and pull it back, and go forward and pull it back. Well, the lawn was kind of wet, so when I'd pull it back, I would lay the grass down, and it just wouldn't cut it. And a couple days later, the grass all started growing up, and Mom was like, "Oh, you need to go back there and fix that. Your lawn doesn't look very nice," and she almost went and mowed it herself. I don't think you did, but I remember it was her name was Tilly. She lived right next door to the Cronins, and I'd go and mow her lawn. Remember, the Cronins had a couple neighbors who I would go and mow their lawn for them. And like I said, you were really upset that I didn't do a real good job for them. So that's, I guess, I'm trying to think if there are any other more stories about Mom and me.
They were just talking about funny stories, so,
Hmm.
They were talking about funny experiences.
Funny experience. I don't have any funny experiences. Everything I did was real. I was kind of a boring. Never did anything funny.
Grandma, can you remember any?
Oh, I can remember some funny things he did in Boy Scouts. There was this one boy that was born the same day he was born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And his name was Brian. Big redheaded kid. To this day I know him well.
Mm-hmm. So do I.
And he's a really good, turned out really well.
Mm-hmm.
But Ted was a shrimp like the rest of the family. Brian was huge, great big kid, way big for his age. And Ted would do mean things on scout outings, like take his hat and throw it in the water.
I'd pick on him.
And make him cry.
To this day, I don't know what I was thinking. I remember being in 11.
He didn't just beat you up to
I know. I look back and I think, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I remember being at a camporee and just picking on him. And he was like this great big kid. And I was picking on him, and finally he was, and when he was 11, he was really uncoordinated. I mean, he was really strong and really big, but he was really uncoordinated. And I was a little kid, but I was really, coordinated. And I remember, he decided he was going to wrestle me. I remember wrestling him and beating him.
Yeah.
And I remember kids like, "Look at that little kid beat that big kid up," And it was, and I don't know what this says about me, and I'm not too proud of it. But yeah, so when we were younger, I would pick on him. And I don't know if it was because I was always the smallest kid and younger, Spencer's bigger than me, and that I just wanted to be the bully for once, but yeah, I picked on him, and like I said, I don't know what was going on in my mind at the time. all I can say is I was young and I hope I outgrew that.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And we became friends
Someone
though.
would kill you for that now.
Oh, I know. And like I said, I wasn't like a really strong person. I wasn't like a feisty person or anything. I did like to tease people, you know. And I know I would tease Spencer. And we would tease Spencer till he just, you know, his face was flaming red. He had smoke coming out of his ears. And we'd run in the bathroom and lock the door and hear him just pound on the door trying to come in and kill us. So, you know, we were kind of teasing and stuff, but I don't know why. I just picked up on Brian. But we became friends, and we were friends throughout, you know,
Yeah, oh yeah.
throughout high school and throughout Scouts, and still to this day are, you know, friendly and stuff. So, and like I said, I don't know, other than, like I said, I was 11 years old and just a little kid still.
Yeah.
Slow to grow up.
I couldn't believe it when you tell me. I thought, you gotta be kidding. Oh dear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I asked you, you said, yeah, I did it.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't deny it at all. Yeah, I did it.
I remember we were on a hike, and I grabbed his cap, and his cap was like his security blanket. But then we were like 11, 12 years old, you know,
Yeah.
and both of us probably pretty immature for our ages, and me really physically immature for my age. And I grabbed his cap, and he was chasing me, you know, and give me back my cap. And I was running down the trail, and we got to a creek, and I just threw it in the creek, and we couldn't find it, and he was just. You know, he just sat down on the side of the creek when they couldn't find it, and started crying and crying. I felt really bad at that point. I mean, I didn't want to make him cry. And one of the scouts went over where he landed, and he found it kind of up against this rock, pulled it out. And but I think that was the last time I did that. I didn't do that a lot.
So he wasn't perfect.
No,
Oh.
no.
But you were a pretty easy kid to raise. You didn't have any other than you're getting stitches a couple of times.
Yeah, I remember breaking my finger. We used to play this game called Pony Express, where you'd run down the middle of the road, and people on both sides of the road would have balls and try and hit you with the ball. If you got hit, you had to stop, and then the next person would come down, and you'd have like a baton. They'd try to grab the baton and run, and you know, everybody try and hit them with the ball, and your whole team would try and advance the baton to the end of this, you know, the end of the whatever the defined area was. And I was just a little kid, and I was running in the middle of the street, and somebody threw a ball at me really hard, and it bent my fingers back. So I went in, and I did not want to go to the hospital and get a cast, but we went in and got an X-ray and found out one of the fingers were broken, and I had a splint for a while. I must have been pretty young. I remember going to the Woodland.
Yeah, boy. I think all the times I went to emergency with you kids, and Lauren, I went with him about 3 times more than anybody else.
See, I didn't go that many times.
Oh no, I went with him on a regular basis. So the rest of you did your share. Something to do with numbers, I think.
Well, I remember Mom always reading to us as a kid, and reading Fox and Socks is my favorite, and she would always be really, you know, energetic and you know, and you know, the way she would read. I always remember enjoying that. I remember playing Concentration as a kid. We'd play games and play card games. I remember playing Concentration a lot for some reason. Maybe that's just because that was a game I liked. I remember, you know, always having fun at Christmas and holidays. You know, always, you know, getting out the decorations, and you know, the Halloween decorations and Thanksgiving decorations and Christmas decorations. And I remember always for Valentine's Day, we always make a box and put it, you know, we'd always make a box and and decorate it and put a slot on the top, and with those, that's where we put our cards for the family. And we would just wait in anticipation for Valentine's Day to open up the box and get all the cards out. I look back and think it was just a bunch of Valentine's cards, and you know, there'd be some candy in there. But you know, we would just get really excited for that. Just you know, just we really got excited for the littlest things. It seems like. Another thing was the advent calendars. And we'd even recycle the advent calendars. They weren't even new. They weren't even brand new. But we'd hang up this advent calendar, and we would just wait. Oh, tomorrow we're gonna open up number 4. You know, we'd get up and whose turn is it to open up number 4? You know, and we'd count ahead. Okay, I'm gonna be opening up number 9, so that's my turn. And I'd know exactly where it was, and we'd wake up in the morning and just ready to open up that next, and all it was is this little piece of, this piece of paper. You open up the little door, there's a little picture behind it. But we just thought that was the biggest deal.
Yeah. They're not so sophisticated. Every kid has their own advent calendar.
Really? Well, we don't.
No, we never did.
And I remember Mom always thought that we should have a hot breakfast in the morning too. So we'd have soft-boiled eggs, which I didn't like, and we'd have cream of wheat and Roman meal. And I remember I didn't mind the hot cereal so much because I could add so much sugar into them, make them so sweet that they would, that even I would like them. And I remember I was a really picky eater. And Mom always said, if you don't eat your dinner, you're not going to get any dessert. And I wouldn't eat my dinner. And about half the time, she'd feel so sorry for me for not eating any dinner, she'd give me dessert anyway.
That was a big mistake.
Do you remember that?
I'm not surprised. I know you were a picky eater.
Do you remember saying you wouldn't give me dessert and then
I'm sure I
giving
said
in?
that to all the kids, yeah.
And you remember giving me dessert all the time,
Yeah.
even when I
Well,
didn't
probably
eat dinner. Maybe I knew you'd give in.
Well, it's just all talk, I guess.
I knew, and the other thing I knew is when you made tapioca pudding my favorite,
Yeah.
because there was at least 2 or 3 kids that didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and eat my bowl and just wait for the other kids to leave the table, leave theirs sitting there, and I'd grab their bowl, eat theirs, grab the next bowl and eat theirs. I'd get like 4 bowls of tapioca pudding when you made it.
I remember that.
That was my favorite.
Oh,
And so what else? I always remember I really enjoyed taking care of kids when I was younger. So whenever there was any babysitting jobs that came up, I would always, in the ward, if there was any families that wanted a babysitter, I always would volunteer and loved babysitting. And did that a lot too during the school year. Babysat for kids, for families, and that was another small source of income. It didn't seem like I got paid that much. Never really made that much money doing it, but I always enjoyed taking care of kids and playing with them. Usually they ask me back.
Yep.
So, let's see, what else do I remember babysitting our kids, and Mimi still remembers the day I locked her in Mom's room when she threw a tantrum. That still bothers her.
Now that she has kids, she's going to understand a lot of things much differently.
Well, she thought, for some reason in her mind, I was like 15, 16 years old. But in reality, at the time, I think I was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know very well how to handle the situation. So I have that in my defense. But probably wasn't a good thing to do. But like I said, I didn't know any better. So. I remember always going on camping. You guys always took us to the ward campouts.
Yeah.
I don't know if you liked camping.
24th of July?
Yeah.
We done. Almost. We never missed hardly a one.
Yeah, we always went camping. And I remember taking a lot of trips to Utah.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I remember every year, at least once, we'd take a trip to Seaside. And go to Seaside, and we'd go to the aquarium and feed the seals and go and play on the beach. That was like that was the greatest vacation. Going to that. That was our one thing that we did every year. So yeah, I don't have too many funny things to say though. Sorry.
That's okay.
Didn't get in trouble a lot. Didn't do anything real mischievous. Except for sneaking food probably.
Did you?
Oh yeah, all the time. I'd sneak. You would always have like a glass container of coconut on the counter.
Oh, yeah, you like coconut.
And so I'd sneak in and steal coconut. and I'd sneak, and you had like you'd buy this big huge gallon jar full of pudding.
Oh, that was food storage.
Food storage. So I'd
Yeah.
sneak into the pudding, and I'd make myself. I'd take a cup of milk, and I'd, mix in some. I'd sneak some pudding mix, and then I'd hide it in the freezer downstairs for it to, and then come back after it was, a few minutes later, it was pudding, and I'd eat it, and then, rinse out the dish.
See, and
in
I
this
didn't
cup.
ever, I never had that.
I would sneak. Oh, and if there's ever dehydrated blueberries or dehydrated plums and things like that from the food storage, I'd sneak into that.
So you never caught on to this?
Well, yeah, I knew some of the things, and the dried food was really a problem. I didn't know that disappeared rapidly.
I was gonna say, it just seemed like, when no one's looking, I'd go into, because I wouldn't eat a lot,
No, he didn't eat hardly anything.
So I'd go into the kitchen and sneak things when I could, and I definitely.
Yeah, I was just thinking, no wonder you weren't eating anything.
Oh, I can't remember too many other things that I would sneak. But we got older, then we did have. Oh, there's another thing I remember. Two things, is when we would get a half gallon. We'd always go to Sen's to get ice to get our milk. It was a drive-up milk place, and Mom would always get a half gallon ice cream or two. And when we'd eat the ice cream, it was in like a block in a box. And we'd undo the entire box, and she'd take a knife and evenly cut it into 8 pieces, and we'd all get a block of 1/8 of a half gallon of ice cream, and that was our dessert for usually family home evening. And we'd get an even piece. And the other thing is when she'd go grocery shopping on Saturday, she'd always buy 1 box of sugar cereal. And Sunday morning she'd wake up, she'd put out the bowls on the counter and equally divide out the sugar cereal, so we'd get 1 bowl of sugar cereal
Yeah.
on Sunday morning. And if she got on a payday, so sometimes on payday she would take us and get hamburgers at Burgerville. You'd come home sometimes with Burgerville hamburgers or
Well, it
bacon
wasn't Burgerville.
colossal.
Where did I go? I went to that
Double E.
double E.
You go to Double E sometimes, but I remember you getting a bacon colossal at Burgerville before too. Yeah. So you'd get us something on Fridays sometimes when you got paid. And another thing I remember is I didn't think that wrinkles in my shirts, was a very big deal, when I was in high school. And so Mom would always say, you guys should iron your shirts, especially your white shirts. Because they look fine ironed, with wrinkles in them. So Mom would always make sure that they were nice and ironed, so she'd do it all herself to make sure we looked nice when we went to church or anywhere. And you never forced us to live with the consequences of not doing our ironing.
Until you got to the mission home.
Yeah.
Or mission. Not the mission home, but before you
The
were
MTC?
MTC. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I remember I wore wrinkled shirts all through the MTC, and I had a teacher that got upset at me, and I says, well, they're fresh out of the out of the wrapper. They got all these squares on them, but they're plenty clean. I don't need, and I said, well, after I wash them once, then I'll iron them, but I don't see why I should iron them. Now I'm just in the MTC, and we went back and forth, and that was probably just the first week. The first time I did my laundry, I ironed them, but the first week she gave me a hard time about it every single day. You remember that show, The Mailbox?
Mhm.
The church movie? There's a little girl that talks to that lady.
Mhm.
That little girl, she was my MTC teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The people used to come by and always, and she told us, yeah, when I was a little girl, I was in this movie. That was her. She was a really nice lady. I mean, like I said, she was just give me a hard time, and I ended up being the assistant to the president while I was in the MTC. So that was a fun calling too.
We gotta end pretty soon.
Yeah, I
Second time.
I said I don't have too much to. pretty sedate life for me compared to my siblings.
That's fine. I mean, like, Lauren really packed in the.
Oh yeah,
jams,
so
but
yeah, Lauren
it's
has
good to get both.
five times as many. I mean, like I said, I just never lived on the edge like Lauren did. When we would climb trees sometimes. Corey, he had a friend named Corey, and I'd come kind of hang out with him and Corey sometimes. And they'd climb trees, and Lauren would always go all the way to the top where it was kind of bending a little bit, you know. And I would never go that high. I never took risks like Lauren did. Lauren just felt he was invincible as a kid, and I was always worried of you know, getting hurt or, you know, something bad happening, and always was much more careful, much more you know, like I said, didn't take risks like he did.
Before we do finish up, is there anything, I guess anything about your mom or to your mom that you'd want to say?
Well, I would say that you know, my life has been extremely blessed by, you know, my like, well, a few things. First, I would say my testimony. You know, Dad was strong in the church too, but he had some, you know, some ideas that didn't go along with church doctrine. But Mom was very solid in her faith, and that, you know, and even despite the kind of apocryphal ideas I was hearing constantly from my dad, I always had a strong testimony in the church and a strong testimony in the church leaders, the prophet, the stake presidents, the bishops, the, you know, young men's leaders. Always, and, you know, I attribute that to my mom. I don't think I would have had, you know, that same, you know, kind of unquestioning faith had, you know, if not for her example. And the other thing is she always encouraged us to go out and get involved. And I would say, due to her encouragement and also the examples of my older siblings, if I had been an only child, you know, and I didn't have the older siblings or anything, I was really scared of, you know, going out and participating in things, and like I said, if not for her encouragement and older siblings, kind of, you know, leading the way, I wouldn't have those experiences, which is really good, which has really helped form my life too. Having you know, being involved in sports, being involved in band, being involved in Boy Scouts, being, you know, going out and doing those things, going on a mission, going to college. You know, if I had not been encouraged in that direction, that, you know, would have completely changed my life. So that was really helpful. And like I said, my testimony and my involvement in those things are really, you know, define most of who I am, and I owe that to my mom, largely.
Yeah, you have to have something more than a mom. You have to have the ability and
I remember
determination.
I remember another story. We were chosen. Our family were chosen to all give talks in church one week, and we were reading the Book of Mormon at the time. And I was going to give a story. I was going to tell a story of the Liahona for my talk. I got up and told, you know, and I don't know if you remember reading
It was
the book.
Rob's farewell.
It was Rob. So I remember we were reading the Book of Mormon every day, though.
Yeah.
You would get up and we would listen, and you would read the Book of Mormon to us. And I got up and I was telling the story about, you know, and I got mixed up, and I was telling the story about the Oklahoma, and the, you know, and Lehi found the Oklahoma outside of his tent, and, you know, and you know, I heard, and the Oklahoma, when they were good, the Oklahoma would tell them which way to go, and then people in the audience kept laughing, and I kept looking around, and what's so funny about this, and so I gave this whole talk about the Oklahoma, and I went back, you know, and I looked, and I went back, and they said, it's the Liahona. And everybody's laughing. I felt so embarrassed. And then another example, I remember the church put on a Christmas pageant or Christmas play, and they chose me to be the baby Jesus. And they told me to go out, and they said, okay, there's going to be some toys out there, and I think there's some blocks go out and sit by the blocks and play with the blocks, you know.
You were supposed to be in the carpenter shop.
Oh, okay. There's these blocks, and they said, just go play with the blocks. And I went out there, and the lights were all out, and I went out on the stage all by myself. And there were these blocks, and I just remember crying the entire time. That's all I did was cry the entire. And it was all day. They darkened everything and put a spotlight on me, I think. And I was sitting there in the spotlight all by myself, and I just cried.
He was on his knees. He just put his head down and.
This is baby Jesus learning carpentry. I was crying. I think I still remember, you know, Sister Detman telling me, well, you're going to come and you get the special role. I was like, I don't want the special role. I want to be in the background. I don't want to be in the front.
I remember it well.
We used to have a lot of war activities back then, not like we do now. So yeah, and like I said, Mom's always, I was never as outgoing as, you know, my siblings. And, you know, and Mom was always patient to let me progress at my own pace, even though, you know, I didn't achieve like other people did. I didn't, you know, excel. I didn't, you know, I didn't make lots of friends. And you know, I didn't have a lot of friends. And you know, you like I said, you let me, you know, progress at my own pace. You didn't worry about me. Make me feel like there was something wrong with me. So I always felt really comfortable with myself, even though like I said, even though I didn't have lots of friends, didn't have, you know, lots of accomplishments, but I always felt, you know, really comfortable with myself, really comfortable. Not never felt like there was anything wrong with me. I always felt, you know, I was who I was and nothing to be ashamed of. And I think I attribute that to my mom.
Yep. That's true. You always were. You always were comfortable with yourself.
So
That's true. That's a very
that's-
good quality.
Well, thank you.
thank you, Sean. Kill the tape.